Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about the concept of deconstruction. Now this video is for everyone out there who might not have been acquainted with the concepts of philosophy, but who has a keen interest in life and how philosophy can affect life. Now I have divided this whole lecture into two videos. The first video is here. In the next video, I'll be talking about Jacques Derrida's essay, Structure, Sign and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences. There I will be explaining the critical concepts provided by Derrida and the concept of deconstruction in a more detail. Now that will be an academic sort of discussion. In this video, which is again divided into two parts, in the first part, I will talk about the concept of deconstruction, how it can affect our thinking and what are the changes it can bring in our society. In the second part of this video, which can be called a bonus part, I will talk about how to criticize, how to critically analyze a text in the deconstructionist method. Now, everyone can be a critic after this video without any degree on creative writing. Western thinking has always stressed itself on binaries. By binary, I mean opposites. For example, day and night, woman, man, man, woman. Speech, writing. Now it is believed that meaning emerges out of these opposites. For example, you can only know light when you are aware of what darkness is. You can only know man when you know what our woman is. Structuralism hits these binary oppositions. Let me give you an example. If in the difference between life and death, why would you put a zombie? In the differences between life and death, or in the binary of life and death, why would you put a zombie? A zombie is equally living and it's already dead, and that's why it is a zombie. So it is an in-between thing. Now, deconstruction targets this in-betweenness and finds this whole concept of finding binaries faulty. Now, in these binary oppositions, the first term is always prioritized. For example, in man, woman, woman is considered as something who is not like man, as someone who lacks the completeness of man. In every other thing, in speech or writing too, writing is something that lacks the liveliness of the speaker. Now, it is also a fact that the first term is always built upon the second term. For example, in the man and woman binary, if man is prioritized or if man is considered as the standard, then it should also be acknowledged that man is built upon woman. If woman is not there, then we cannot define what is man. And the concept of woman is already dependent on man, because unless and until there is man, there is no woman. Now, let us take another example. In the binary of gents and ladies, or male and female, why would you put transgender and homosexual community? We always think of opposites as standard, while man is the standard and woman is something beneath the standard. In between these two standards itself, where would you place the LGBT community? Now, structuralists or rather post-structuralists often stress on the fact that these differences, these binaries are often relative of the time and place. For example, if I tell that night means darkness and day means light, or day means light and night means darkness, then what would I say of Norway, where light remains for a very long time from April or May to July or August. Now, let us take another example to keep this thing clear. For example, how hot is actually hot, or how cold is actually cold. If you are living in any cold country, probably 10 degrees Celsius is hot for you. Or if you are living in any desert, a little bit of cold is wonderful for you. So this hotness and coldness, or this oppositeness, binariness, is always relative of the time and place. Western thinking has found out structures in between everything, in every modes, in the way we live our life, the way we talk, the way we express our meanings. For example, literature is considered to be a structure where novels, novellas, poetry, short story make an entire structure, and that maintains the literature. Now, in the structure of literature, it is itself a structure among all other little literary structures from different languages, from Hebrew, from English. Now, every language has its own literature, and all these literary structures make up the world literature. So this is the tendency to view everything as a structure. Now, when you see everything as a structure, there is sometimes, I would rather say, there is always a central point which holds the structure. For example, in the structure of a school, the headmaster or the principal is the head, is the central figure. In the Bible, God is at the center. Or in governments, there is someone always at the center. So when you say about center, you are already defining that there is a periphery, there is a boundary. If there is a center sitting in the center, then he or she must have, or it must have, a boundary, and within this boundary we have our network of interplay. One of the central tenets of deconstruction, or to say from whom deconstruction has started, is Jacques Derrida. Derrida is saying that the center is always shifting. For example, let us go back to the time before Galileo. During that time, it was believed that Earth is at the center. After Galileo discovered his telescope, the sun came at the center. And now we are living in a network of galaxies that makes the universe. Likewise, let's take more examples. Let's take the previous example of school. When we are at school, the headmaster or the principal is the central figure. Now, when we go to college, the principal is at the center. When we go to university, the vice chancellor is at the center. Likewise, when we go out of the university, then the Ministry of Education or the government is at the center. So the center is always changing. Or remember the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, before the Renaissance, God was at the center of everything in the Western world. After the Renaissance, the liberal humanism came in its place. Now, the rational human is the center. Now, these centers are always, these central points are always changing. Now, what this deconstruction is asking for is that to let go of these centers. Now, if we leave these centers, if we leave these central points, then we are leaving the periphery too. If we ignore a central point, then we are ignoring the periphery, the limit. Then it will result in a free flow of meanings. Let's take more examples to make this clear. The binary of true and false. If the opposite of true is false, then what would you say of Akira Kurosawa's film Rashomon, where there is nothing called false but all the different versions of the truth, all the different narratives of the truth of the same incident? Now, What Derrida or other deconstructionists is saying is that the opposite of true should be untrue, but not false. There should not be any definite, any distinct opposition or binaries. So if we forego the opposition between male and female, then we can include the differences that lies in between. We can include the transgender and all these people, all this queer community in between man and woman. And in this way, philosophy affects our thinking and has the power to change our society. I'll move to the next part of this video to make the clear concept more clear. What is deconstruction, or what is the deconstructionist mode of thinking? Now, what we have done is, let's take a quick recap. What we have done is that we have decided not to go by the opposites, the binaries. We have said that in the binary, one concept is dependent upon the other, and the other concept is also dependent upon the first one. So the first is having the traits of both itself and the other one, and the other is also having the traits of both itself and the other one. For example, in man and woman binary, man is also having characteristics of woman, women are also having characteristics of man. So so we are saying that these binaries are not good or faulty in itself. And then when we are negating this structure, then we are going into something else. Now, in case of literary texts, post-structuralism or deconstructionist theories, deconstructionist critics always try to break these little structures. It becomes necessary to talk about readers and authors. For example, when an author writes a story, he writes it from his own perspective. She is telling her message. So when we read it, we actually get the message that the writer has intended for us, the meaning that the writer has intended for us. But when we read it, we impose our own meaning, our own beliefs, cultures, presuppositions, preferences upon the text that we read. So the text may come from the author, but when we go through it, we impose our own meanings apart from the author's meanings. So deconstructionist theories or deconstructionist critics always try to look how a text, like any story or any novel or any poem, can actually break down, actually conceal arguments, or depends on other texts, or it can reverse its arguments. Deconstruction tries to say that incoherence is already there. This error of finding binary is already present everywhere, including the texts, the stories, the poems that we are going to read, or we read, or in any cultural phenomena. Now, the task of deconstruction is to analyze how these concepts actually are in clash with each other. For example, J. Hillis Miller says that deconstruction is not a dismantling of the structures of a text, but a demonstration that it has already dismantled itself. Now, deconstruction is the process, is the procedure to find how the text has already broken its structure, how the poem has already broken its structure, and how it is concealing arguments, how it is dependent upon other texts, how it is not letting you know the social conditions that it tries to hide. If I give an example, it would be very easy. Let us take the example of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. In that novel, Elizabeth is intelligent and Darcy is shown as full of pride. But what a deconstructionist would do is she would show that Darcy contains both the traits of pride and intelligence, whereas Elizabeth, who is solely considered to be an intelligent one, also contains traits of vanity. How would you do that? For example, if we go through the story, then Elizabeth had a different opinion of Darcy when they had their first encounter. Now, this kind of opinion on behalf of Elizabeth was only possible because she was dwindling in a middle class vanity. Had it been that Elizabeth belonged from a poor family, Elizabeth came from a poor family, then she wouldn't hold such an opinion of Darcy. Then it shows that Elizabeth has also this pride element in her character. Okay, Darcy, who is always considered to be full of pride from the beginning of the novel, has actually shown his intelligence in dealing with the case when one of the Bennet sisters ran away with a man. So both Elizabeth and Darcy has both the traits of being intelligent and pride. So a soul-cut binary distinction between them is not possible. And what next? Now the text can also, this kind of reading and interreadings can show us how this text dictates that women should behave in a cold, calm and modest way. This text also conceals the arguments that were prevalent in those times, that women should behave in a cold and modest way. Also, every woman's job is to recognize the goodness in a man, although that goodness in a man might have been in a mess of haughty temper, but the job of a woman is to find the goodness inside the man. And also it is assumed that the woman should be perfect in all respect, both in intellect and in behavior. Now the man can be a little bit evil, but that is all right because he is rich. Now these subtle things, these between these lines, these things that we can see when you go in between the lines, these are the things that the text actually tries to conceal. Okay, for example, if Darcy is poor, then the story would never have been possible. Now, for a poor man cannot appear as a hero of a novel, or a poor man has no prospect of getting married. Now, these are the things that a text tries to conceal. Now, it becomes all the more interesting if the same novel is studied in different epochs of time, in different periods of time. For example, Pride and Prejudice would have meant completely convincing and a good story at the time when it was written. In the modern time, it would appear a sort of patriarchal, as the way I have put it in front of you. So these are the markers, these are the way to look at the text, and I believe if you change this or if you adopt this kind of observation, then you can also become a critic, or mainly a deconstructionist critic. I believe I have said all these things. If I miss any of the parts, then you can comment below and we can start another video regarding those comments, and putting all the comments in a combined way, we can go into more videos like that.